Hi everyone, welcome back to this new video. In this video, we are going to learn how can we build our own online code execution engine, or you can call online compiler. So the thing which we are going to use, or the library or the package, anything you can say, which we are going to use is used by most of the popular online code execution platform which exists in today's world. And the thing which we are going to use, the technology which we are going to use in this video is Docker. So Docker is nothing actually, you can call it, Docker is a container or a machine in which all the necessary things to run a particular project is compiled together into a single unit called image. So we can create instances of this image, and that's how Docker works. Now there are various other topics regarding Docker, but I hope for the understanding of this video, the limitations of Docker knowledge is up to this much. So I hope you will have some previous knowledge with Docker. However, I will take you through all the commands which are necessary for dealing with this course. We will learn about the Judge0 compiler, which is a very popular library for this sort of coding execution systems. We are going to read the documentation of Judge0, and I will take you step by step about how the things work. So let us go to our Google Chrome and first understand how the basic system design of any code execution engine looks like. So we are in our Scala draw. First let us understand what are the three things which are necessary when a code execution is occurring. So the first thing which occurs is we write our code. Now every code that we write, let's move it a bit side. Yeah, so every code that we write comes with a standard input, std_in. We call it standard input as std_in, and it has some expected output, right, which is called standard output or std_out. So every submission that we make, every submission that we make comes with std_in and std_out, right? Now once the std_out or the standard output matches with the expected output, we can say that our submission is accepted, and if it does not match, our submission is not accepted. So everything like this, the standard input and output, we have to send it to the backend server, which is actually in control of the instance that we create. Okay, and this backend server will manage everything, how the code execution actually happens, right? Now when we are learning about code execution, there are few things which we have to be concerned about. The first thing is the time limit, time constraints, up to how much time we can allow the code to run, because we cannot allow a particular code to run for hours or say days, because it will hamper our workflow, right? Because it will occupy some sort of instance space or memory, and it will also hamper the execution of other code, right? So we have to keep some time constraints up to how much time the particular code should run. Apart from this, we need to take care that the memory requirements, so memory constraints, STRAINTS. Okay, now what is memory constraints? Now every code that we run, if you have knowledge of programming, every code that you run has to take some amount of space in the memory. For example, in dynamic memory allocation, we are requesting some amount of space in heap, or every function call that we create takes some memory in the stack. So every program that you write eventually will have some memory limits or memory requirements. Now how much memory should a particular program take, how much we can allow a program to take at maximum. Now all these things have to be kept into consideration. And last thing, the very important thing that you have to check is that the code is non-malicious. CIOUS, non-malicious. Now what does the term non-malicious mean? Suppose we write a code in a execution system which can hamper the operating system of the server. Now this is very dangerous. We cannot allow a code to interact with the internal configuration of our backend server. So there has to be some restrictions for it, right? And also, if my code is crashing my backend server because of some overload or say high amount of programming, we need to take care that our system is restarting and system is not corrupted in the backend and it can self repair, right? So all these things are taken into consideration before building a Judge0, before building a online code execution system, right? So everything, like all the things which I have mentioned so far, is now managed by a backend library or a project, you can say, which is called Judge0. So we are going to use the thing called Judge0, which will internally manage all these things which I have said so far. So the code execution, the programming languages which to allow, which to not allow, the standard input, standard output, whether the solution is accepted or not, and all this thing to check the time constraints, memory limits, the code is malicious or not. All these things are managed by a package or project, you can say, is called Judge0. So let us head to the documentation of Judge0 to understand Judge0 better. So this is the official web page of Judge0. You can visit judge0.com. It is completely free and also paid versions are available. But for this video, we are going to use the self-hosted one, which is free and also yet powerful. So it says that overall, this amount of code has been executed and it's still counting. So this library is very, very popular for code executions. Okay. So if you read the documentation, it says that it's robust, scalable, open source online code execution system that can be used to build a wide range of applications. So as you can see, they're mentioning. So what are the features or key points of this Judge0 product? So rich and verbose API documentation. I would like to mention that the API is not overflooded, only the necessary things are mentioned, and also it is mentioned in a very good way so that it's easier for any beginner to understand. We will see how the documentation looks like. So it supports 60 plus programming language. Can you imagine? That's huge, I guess, right? So it's sandbox compilation and execution. This means that every execution or compilation that you make does not hamper with the internal architecture or the operating system. So it also supports webhooks as well. So let's click on get started. Okay, so let's click on get started. So here comes the pricing. So there are various pricing. So if you can have a time, have a look at this pricing. But for this video, we are going to use the self-hosted one. We are going to do it on our own VPC. And if you click on install, it will start. So these are the partners, as you can see. So let's start and let's click on install. So on clicking on install, we land up in the Judge0 GitHub library or GitHub repository. So it says that this is the version 13.1. This is very updated one, and now it's very stable. So updates are now very rare. Okay, so you can see that 8 months ago, it's long time. So it says that this is the deployment procedure, and it says that download the extracts. Okay, cd Judge0, and okay, these are the things which you have to keep in mind. Okay, well enough. So let's start one by one. All right, it's fine. So the first thing which you have to do is you have to come to any online cloud providers and you have to spin up your instance. So I have taken DigitalOcean. This is my dashboard, you can say. So we are going to create our own VPC, and over here only we are going to do the entire stuffs. So click on create. After you land up over here, we are going to create a droplet. So VPC in DigitalOcean is called droplet. You can use Linode and AWS as well, but for the timing I'm using DigitalOcean because it's very easy to configure. So you need to choose the nearest available location to your system, which is Bangalore for me. So the data center is BLR1 for me. It can be different for you as well. So the operating system as we are going to use is Ubuntu, although they recommend that Ubuntu 22.04 is good for this purpose. So we are going to use that as well. So let's come back. So we are going to use 22.04 64 bits. Okay, now about the plan. So we are going to use a shared CPU architecture. That's fine. Come to regular, and if you see that in many of the cases you will see that this $4 plan is also available. But since our purpose of this entire VPC is to execute some amount of code simultaneously from multiple user. So I prefer, or I would recommend, that you keeps at least 1 GB of RAM so that it can work hassle free. So I will take the $6 machine because it offers me 1 GB of plan, 1 GB of CPU and RAM, and also 25 GB of SSD, which is enough for me. So we are going to use the $6 plan. Just come down, let's click on root, and we don't need a root password at least, so let's give any random password. Okay, let's go down, and I hope you're good to go. Okay, you have selected the password authentication. You have to get your root password for the route. Okay, we are not matching the password constraints. So let's give it. Yeah, so as you can see, I have set my password, I have written it somewhere, and so let's create a droplet. So it will take some time to provision. It will install the operating system and the necessary things. So that's pretty quick, I guess. So let's wait for the timing to let the droplet spin up. So it will take some time. I hope it's good to go and we can connect to our droplet. So click here. So access console, and it's powered on, and you can launch the droplet console, and this is the place from which we will access our instance. So the first thing that you need to do over here, you have to install Docker in our system. So how do we install Docker? We don't know. So let's check out Google up and let's find out how can we install Docker in our system. So I will keep this side as the instance and the right side will be my screen. So let's resize this. So instance is still connecting. Let's give it some time to connect. So Docker installation Ubuntu. Okay. So let's read the documentation from DigitalOcean as well. So come down, it will say to update, upgrade, then the following things. So let's wait for the instance to spin up. It should not take long. Uh, okay, why it's taking time? Okay, so as you can see, our droplet is up and running and we can see some sort of logs. So the first thing that you do after provisioning a droplet is to update the droplet. I believe by default it's updated only. So let's see. Okay, it will take some time. Okay, it's updated, and then we have to install the Docker from the apt repository. Simply copy paste stuffs and then add the GPG key for Docker. It will take some time to install the things. It says that unintended. Okay, let's press tab. Okay, so containers not need to be restarted. Add the GPG keys. Okay, GPG key is added. Apt repository of Docker. Okay, it will take some time. Okay, let's wait now. Continue to install. Okay, it's done, I guess. Then paste the next command to see the apt cache. And if you see, Docker is not installed still now. So we have to install the CE. All right. So Control Shift V. So 442 bytes I have to allow. And after this, you have to check the status of Docker, whether the Docker client and engine are started in the VM or not. So for that, you need sudo systemctl status, or somebody calls systemctl status of Docker. So let's see. Okay. Okay. See. All right. Now let's see the status of Docker. Okay, as you can see that our Docker is active and running, and now we can proceed to install the Judge0 compiler. So if you can see docker/v, okay, I did a spelling mistake, docker/v. So if you see docker/v, you can see that the Docker version installed on our system is 27.3. That's stable. That's stable. All right, so let's come to the Judge0 documentation. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do, you have to open this page, sudo etc default grub. So let's go. We are already sudo. We will not copy that. Okay, it says that permission is denied. So let's do sudo control shift p. Okay, let's open the file. Okay, it will be nano because it's a text configuration file. So it will be sudo nano etc default grub. So once you come here, it says that add system unified C group hierarchy equal to 0 to the value of grub cmd linux variable. So let's the grub cmd linux. So the last line you can see in this place. So we have to add that. So let's come to this place. Okay, all right. Course close, and then we have to apply our changes. So press Ctrl+O and then press enter. So you can see that we have wrote 33 lines. Ctrl X to close this. So now this says to update the grub and then reboot. Okay, sudo update grub. Okay, grub is updated and then reboot. Simply reboot because we have changed something in the grub or the bootloader. So we need to reboot for the changes to be applied. So it says that console is disconnected. Let's wait for some time being for the system to restart. It will not take some long time and I will get back to you after the system gets restarted. Okay, so coming back, our container is again back. I'm sorry, not container, our instance is again back after being rebooted. And the next thing which we have to do is we have to additionally make sure that Docker is installed. Yes, we have seen that Docker is installed. So how to check it? We can simply do docker-v. And next we have to install Docker Compose as well. So it's very simple to install. So sudo, simply write sudo apt install Docker Compose. All right, and press enter. So it will take some time for the Docker Compose to install and it might be not so long. Let's give it some time to install. All right, so it's installed and you can simply check the Docker Compose version as well. So docker-compose-v. So if you see, Docker Compose version 1.29.2 is available now. Fine. Let's clear the terminal, and the first thing is the deployment step. We are proceeding to the deployment step. So copy this and simply paste this to install. I'm sorry. Just a minute. Okay, so we canceled an operation. We copied two actions at once. Simply paste this. First, do a quick ls to check whether anything else is in the directory or not. That's a quick practice. Okay, so we have a Judge0 v1 that we do not need it. We accidentally downloaded it. So cd rm/rfg. So we are in this root directory, I guess. Only one snap folder is present and we have to install the Judge0 in our system. So first we have to fetch the image using wget from GitHub as well. So they have provided the link. So it has now came, I guess. Yeah. And now we have to unzip this because this is a compressed file. So simply write unzip Judge0 and press enter. So it says that unzip is not found. So we have to install unzip, no issues. Sudo apt install unzip. Now these things might be present in your by default operating system in the laptop that you use, but this is a server. You have to remember that only the bare minimum things are present by default. So we have to get the additional things from your own which are not present. So unzip was one. Sometimes you do not get the wget or the curl. which you use to get the package from the GitHub. So that are the things which you have to get eventually. Now with that fine, let's unzip the Judge0 files. So done. So quick ls, and we have to get into the Judge0 folder. Now once you do get into the Judge0 folder, simply do an ls and you will end up seeing two files. One is a docker compose YAML. This is a YAML file or yet another markup language file, and the judge0.conf, which is the configuration file which we have to edit. So what are the things we have to edit? So it says that visit this website to generate a random password. For the timing, we can check any random password. Okay, we have to remember that as well, but that's not a good practice. Okay, update the Redis password. We have to update the Redis password in the thing, and the Postgres password. Okay, so these are the things which Judge0 uses for caching. If the same user is logging once every time, so we have to store that values in the cache. So these are the things which you have to set password by default. So we have to do nano judge0.config. Okay, so we end up seeing this place, and we have to come down to the Redis password first. Where is the Redis password? Slowly. Okay, if you can see, you end up seeing the Redis password. So it says that there is no default password and it should be set. So come up here. Okay, simply write any random password. Don't follow my password because this is critically an unsafe password and not recommended. Okay, so Redis password is now set. Next, come down to the Postgres password. So I hope it's just in the bottom. Yep. All right, same password I'm going to continue with. All right, that's fine. Now simply press Control O, then Control, then Enter, then Control X. Fine, our configuration is now done. So simply, we are already in this Judge0 folder. We do not have to do cd. Now simply write docker compose up-d first the Redis server or the database. So it will take some time to pull the latest version of Postgres from the backend of the docker compose. And if you can see, all the logs are coming now. It won't be long. It won't be long. The servers are ridiculously fast in internet. Okay, it is pulling up the Redis. Okay, downloads happen in various segments in the Docker, and if you can see, the keys are also provided in the logs. Okay, now once that is done, it's telling us to freeze the terminal for 10 seconds. All right, let's freeze it for 10 seconds. Now once you type in this command sleep 10 seconds, your terminal will be inactive for 10 seconds. And that's a good practice to allow the system to settle up after installing all the stuff. So now that's done, 10 seconds is over. Now simply write this command docker compose up-d. So press enter, and this will now pull the Judge0 image from the Docker hub, and it will configure our system to allow these things to execute. Okay, so let's wait now. Okay, so our image is up and running now. So let's see whether our container is running properly or not and our image is working fine or not. To do that, let's expand the screen of the Chrome and let's come back to our VPC page. So this was the VPC page. So I need to fetch my IPv4 address. Remember, the IPv4 public address, not the private one. This is not going to work. So just click on it and just open a new tab and just paste it and then hit the port number 2358 and press enter. Now if you clearly see a blank screen or white screen like this, that's fine, our container is up and running properly. It is only when you hit /docs you can see the documentation of Judge0 finally come up on the screen, and this is the place, and this website is being served from your backend server by the Docker container. Okay, so our container is running, our engine is started. Now how can we check the code execution? Okay, so to check the code execution, what we do, we read the documentation properly and we can find at the top you can see there is a word called dummy client. If you can see, there is a word called dummy client. Now this dummy client will allow you to execute your code inside this container that you have just created. So just click on dummy client. Okay, so this is a dummy client. If you can see, this is the API URL, authorization header, everything is present. So let's see what we get as output. So there is a sample C code, as you can see. So what is doing, it's asking for a name from the user and it's printing the output. Okay, so how can we supply the name? That's what I was saying about standard input. So if you can come down a bit, you can see that the std in is given as Judge0 by default, and the expected output is not given now, but it will also come. Okay, so let's run the code now. So let's run the code. Okay, so it says that our description is accepted and the output which is coming is hello Judge0. So that's the thing which was given, which is hello and the name that you inform or print. So now you can change this standard input to your own name. Say my name is Siddhartha. So let's find out my name and let's again run the code. So click on run and it will take some time, and it says that a solution or the compilation is successful and it's printing my name, hello Siddharth. So like this you can change or try with any programming language. Just find out here, just come up over here, just edit the standard input, find out the expected output, or you can also not write the matching. Also you can also prevent the standard output as well. So this is the maximum file size of the code which I was speaking of in the front in the first part of the video, that this is the maximum file size which the program can take. Number of times the program will run is 1. Number of time the CPU or the CPU time limit, which is maximum 5 seconds the CPU can spend on this. If there is extra time needed, then maximum 1 second you can allocate. Followed by this is the memory limit of this many bytes of maximum space the program can take. This is the stack limit. Obviously you know about what is stack. Followed by this is the maximum number of processors or thread. You can also set and customize this by default, or it can be configured on the backend automatically by Judge0 compiler. Okay, now one important thing is the language ID. Now what is this language ID? So if you come up to the documentation of Judge0 in the back page, you can find out the language ID. So click on languages, and if you can see, just come up over here, get a language, and we have to check out the docs. Okay, simply go hit this URL, or you can simply copy this and come to your endpoint 2358 slash, and you can just paste this. Let's see what do we get. So if you can paste this, you can see that various programming languages along with their ID is working. So my language is JavaScript. I prefer JavaScript. So JavaScript is probably in 63. So yeah, JavaScript of Node 12.14, that's fine, is available in 63. So if you want to utilize JavaScript to run your code, so simply copy this 63, Control C, come back to your compiler, go to your dummy client, back again. Okay, now just remove everything and change your language ID. Now this time we are going to use JavaScript. So how do we check JavaScript is working or not? Simply write console.log. Yeah, console.log should work. Hello world, I am JavaScript. Okay, fine. So let's run this code and let's see whether our JavaScript is working or not. So if you run this, you will see that hello world, I am JavaScript is coming. That means JavaScript is also now active on your client. So like this, you can check out and play with the documentation, read out the documentation, find out the language ID, and have fun. So that's how we build an online code execution engine. Now you can build the front end on your own and send REST API calls to the backend. So you can use the Monokai code executor or the code React, which allows you to write your own code in the VS Code style with automatic highlighting and tabbing. So that's the thing which you can use to build the front end of this. The back end is ready, up and running. And now one important thing, if you are not using the service every time, I recommend you to shut down the instance and destroy it. Otherwise you will incur unnecessary charges. If you want to keep it live, no problem, that's fine. So that's all in this video. I will see you in the next video with some other projects, and do hit that like button and subscribe to my channel and put down your doubts in the comments, and I would be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.